Okay, if I can have everyone's attention. Hello everyone. Thank you for attending the start of our first game jam for the semester. Right. Okay, on today's or tonight's schedule, we shall be going through a few different things. The first of those being some announcements, the jam rundown on how it's going to work, the jam criteria, so what you need to adhere to for the jam, the theme or the prompt, which is the basically what your game is going to be about essentially, actually making teams, and some final notes that we will disperse so everyone is prepared for the jam.
Cool. So first things first. So if you guys know, we have a stall in Overload this year. It's going to be a pretty big event. We're pretty fucking excited about that. But we kind of need your help to run it. And what we mean by that is we need you guys to get involved with the stall. So there's 3 things you can do for Overload this year. You guys can make some art and submit it to us. We have 3 to 4 spots for your art to be showcased. Make sure it's printable in A3 or A4. Make sure it's related to game dev or just gaming in general. You know, you can also showcase some of your games that you guys have made. If you guys if you're an older member or you've already just made some games in the past, we have 2 desktops so we can showcase 2 of your games there. Yeah, you just need to be a full member for that, but seeing as everyone's here, you guys are already full members. And you can also volunteer for the event. So Overload is a free non-profit kind of event. Sure, you have to pay to get in, but it's run fully by volunteers. I volunteered in the past. It's a really great experience. It's also really good for your CV if you need some CV fodder. So if you guys want to join and volunteer for them, you can scan the QR code there. Pretty good experience. And yeah, Overload is happening in April, so if you want to submit your art, get onto that pretty quickly. If you want to submit a game, get onto that pretty quickly. You can contact me or Josh if you're interested in doing that. Anyways, Noah.
Alright, back to our usual things. Okay, so a little bit about what GDG Jam actually is. GDG Jam is basically a game jam that allows you to make a game and level up your game development skills in whatever profession you may be looking towards, and is about basically just making a game with other people. Next. So, okay, what actually makes it different from regular game development? So, an actual game development, if you're doing your own thing, you can obviously do whatever you want. A game jam has a specific prompt, which is like the soul of what you're making. You obviously have to form teams. Obviously, if you're doing if you're doing solo game dev, you're just by yourself. But a game jam actually involves you working with other people, usually anyway. There's a time limit, so you don't have as much time as you would maybe want to make it as perfect as possible. In a game jam, there is a set amount of time. Sometimes it's 2 days. Those are really short jams. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. It can be a month, but there is a time limit for making that game. And at the end of this game jam, you'll be able to showcase it, show it off to everybody else, let other people play your game, you can play their games, and yeah, just have an all-around great time. Next slide. Okay. Yeah, I just want to reiterate this. This is not a competitive thing. It's not you versus another team or, basically coming first, second, third, anything like that. It's all about you making a game, having fun with other people, forming friendships, and becoming a better game developer. That's the essence of a game jam. So don't get it twisted, yo. Next slide, thanks. Right, let's get on to some previous games actually made in game jams we've run in the past. This is Snog. I'm sure some of you played it during Club's Expo week. This was made by Eddie and his team. It was made last year, and the prompt was classic with a twist. And it's a combination of Snake and Pong, as you know. So you have a snake, you go around the thing, the ball comes in, you hit it back, and you have to get the ball to 0 to win. That's the gist of the game. And that was made by Eddie's team. This is another game called Food Night. It was made by one of our other exec, Daz. This is a 2D side-scroller where you are a cook and you have a big butcher knife that, I don't want to say kills things, not very PG, but unalives them, I guess. And the prompt for that was tanky. Yeah, sort of an odd prompt. Next game. And this game was Smallbird and was made by one of our other execs, Clinton and his team. It's a game about birds, raising birds, and making sure they don't go shit wild, because they do breathe fire. Prompt for that was also tanky. Yeah, very tanky game, right? Another one of our games that we made, well, not we made, is Backrooms Escape. This was made by one of our Discord members, Raskia. The prompt is mystery, and the whole thing about this game is run away from the big monster that chases you and don't die. Pretty simple, but it does make sense. Right, next slide. All right, if you are interested in any of those games, or maybe playing them, seeing how they are, we do have an itch page with all the games. You can scan the QR code and go try them out.
I'll let you guys do that.
Oh yeah, in your own time.
Yeah, you got this. All right.
Before we progress any further, we do have some videos that we'd like you to watch. One on making your first game jam. One on some practical rules for a game jam, and the other one on actually having a game present after you're finished, and not just a half-baked product, essentially. Well, not a half-baked product, but basically something that you can actually play. So let's watch those two.
We're going to stick to giving you the best practices for how to actually approach the project itself. So, for your first game, tip number 1, don't plan a project that you think will take you more than a month. Remember, you're going to be getting better with every game you build, and you'll actually often be better off just tossing your first project aside and starting from scratch after you've gotten it out there and learned all you can from it. Tip number 2, it's gonna take you more than a month, but don't sweat it. You won't have much frame of reference when you're planning that first game you're gonna create, and even the most hardened professionals have learned over time to just take their best scheduling estimate and then add 50% to it. Because surprises always come up in game development, and each game presents its own unique challenges. So if you overshoot your 1-month deadline, don't panic, it happens. But if you're coming up on 3 months, well, you probably scoped too large. Take what you've learned and start something smaller next time. Tip number 3. Don't worry too much about the design of your first game. It kills James to say this, but don't spend weeks designing systems or mechanics that you don't even know if you can implement yet. Just get to building something as quickly as you can. The experience is way more valuable than the end results this time around. Tip number 4, set milestones. This one sounds obvious, but it can be so easy to ignore on a small project. If you estimate your project should take you about a month, set yourself a milestone goal for every week. Tip number 5, take those big milestone tasks and break them down even further. As you plan, any tasks that you've listed as taking more than a week is probably best broken down into smaller tasks. This is true for pretty much any game you'll ever build. Build graphics engine or complete character art are way too big to be tasks. Implement hardware instancing or rig main character. Those are at least closer. Even those can probably be broken down further. Having a granular task list will help you plan better, keep you on track, and make you feel like you're really accomplishing things as you tick them off the list. Tip number 6, send yourself producer emails. At the beginning of each week, send yourself an email saying what you did last week and what you plan to do this week. Then compare that with last week's email. This is a quick and dirty way of making sure that things don't fall off the production schedule, and it will help you organize your time each week. Tip number 7, review your game at least once a week. Even if life gets hectic, if your job or school gets in the way of you making a lot of progress on your game, make yourself at least look at your game just for a half hour once a week. It's really, really easy to let 2 weeks slip by without touching your game, and then when you finally get back to it, finding yourself totally lost and not remembering what you were doing or where you were at. This is the point at which a lot of people quit. Don't let that happen to you. Tip number 8, don't worry about production values. A lot of people get derailed by trying to make their first game look or sound good. Don't worry about that. If your game plays amazing, you'll have plenty of time to work on the polish later. But unless you're adding one of those polish touches just to learn how to do it, none of it matters for your first game. Keep in mind, there are a lot of great games out there that are made of nothing but moving squares. Tip number 9, don't spend more than 1 hour trying to do anything yourself. If you find yourself stuck on a problem, take a stab at it because it'll help you learn, but you shouldn't be spending more than an hour on any individual problem in your game. Given that it's your first game, everything you're trying to do probably has an excellent tutorial out there for it. Use those resources. One of the most common quitting points for first-time developers is spending a week making no progress on a problem that the world at large could have helped them solve in minutes. I know that many of us, myself included, want to solve everything ourselves, but take advice from someone who's learned this the hard way. Don't try to do that. And finally, tip number 10, make people play your game. I know that we mentioned this last time, but this is incredibly important. You will learn an unbelievable amount just from seeing how people play what you've created. It's easy to be embarrassed or shy about these things, and it's easy to look at other games out there and say, wow, my game does not measure up to that. I'll show people my game once I have something that does. But trust me, the path to making great games is marked by all the realizations you'll have from people actually playing your earlier work. Don't deny yourself that incredible resource. Hopefully these guidelines should serve to help you get your first game out in no time. Well, 3 months at most. If you find yourself struggling, cut stuff. Find the smallest possible game you can make. Make that. Once that's done, find 1 or 2 new things that you'd like to experiment with, and base your next game around those ideas. If you keep things small and you can keep blazing your way through these projects, you'll find that by the time a year's out, you'll really be able to make games that let you experiment with a huge range of design ideas and game types. And if you're wondering just how to keep your game small, join us on the next episode for a dive into prototyping and the idea of minimum viable product. See you then. During the last 2 episodes, we've stressed how important it is to make your first game something small. But this is so important that this time we're going to dedicate the entire episode to it. This will serve you in good stead not only when you're creating your first game, but also when prototyping for anything else you do. In development, there's a term called minimum viable product, which refers to the smallest thing you can possibly make that'll still give you useful data once released. That should be your goal. Even when James is called in to work on a multi-million-dollar project that has a development time of 3 years, one of the first things he'll tell them is that if they don't have a prototype up in the first 3 weeks, they're doing it wrong. When you can actually play your game, you'll discover all sorts of things that you didn't account for when you were just designing the game in your head. You'll find edge cases where your mechanics are broken, or places where your game just falls apart. You'll find what's really engaging rather than just trying to build something that you hope is engaging, and you'll discover what will add the most to the experience you're creating. Okay, so you've heard me say cut and cut and cut, and that when you think you're done cutting, you're probably not done cutting, but you do have to stop cutting sometimes. So how do we determine when we're down to that minimum viable product? Well, this one is a bit tough, and you're going to get better at it with experience, but the basic idea is to find the absolute minimum set of features that won't affect core development. If you could cut a feature and still technically ship your game, it's probably not part of your minimum viable product. But because this is as much an art as it is a science, let's run through some examples so we're all on the same footing. Let's start with Super Mario Bros. What do we need in order to test if the fundamental gameplay of Super Mario Bros. Is engaging? What's the minimum that we can build and test before deciding if what we have is something worth expanding upon with additional features? Well, do we need Koopas? No. Fire flowers? Nope. Bowser? Nope. Pipes that you can climb down? No. Pipes at all? No. Water levels, mushrooms, hidden blocks, extra lives? No. So what do we need? Well, for Mario, the minimum viable product is probably 1 level where you can move, jump, and fall into pits. That's it. If just that much is engaging, you'll be able to add all those other features later and make it even better. But if running along and jumping over pits doesn't feel good, Super Mario Bros. Simply doesn't work, no matter how many extra features you throw in. So you've got to make sure that that core is working first. Although, in this particular case, I'd probably throw in 2 other features that aren't strictly necessary, but they will make a big difference. First, a trigger which resets the level if the player falls into the pit, just so testing is easier, and to make sure that this aspect isn't just unpalatable to players. And second, the ability to change from walking to running, since the Mario jump mechanic is so dependent on the run button. But that's it. 1 level, 3 features, and you've got a game. Don't believe something this simple could be engaging? Well, set the character to auto-run and you've basically built Cannibalt. When building your first game, or prototyping a larger one, you'll find that you can strip out all of the content, all of the things that aren't rules that control the play itself, but rather elements that are created out of those rules. So enemy types, levels, different weapons, all of that can usually get cut. You might want to include 1 thing from each category just to test the larger rules, but no more than that, because it's really easy to get mired down in making all of that content. And the truth is, games with lots of content but without a solid foundation are rarely good. Perhaps worse, as a creator, when your game's packed with content, it's generally harder to figure out why the foundation's not working. If you test your prototype with a lot of content thrown in, it'll be harder for players to put their fingers on exactly what it is that needs improvement, as all of that content just clutters what's wrong, and they'll be more likely to tell you about bad pieces of content rather than the underlying reasons why that content didn't create a positive experience. It just adds complexity in a situation where you really need to be honing your game's core foundation. Okay, so let's try another one. Old school JRPGs. Now this one can fool people because most designers tend to think of these games in terms of content rather than gameplay. It's easy to get caught up in the story you want to tell, or the massive lists of items and enemies. But if the player has to slog through 80 hours of weak gameplay in order to access that story you've got in mind, you've done your player a disservice. In fact, that's some of what's contributed to the decline in the popularity of traditional JRPGs this decade. So take a game like Final Fantasy IV. Here, I would cut everything but the menu-based combat system. I would even cut out all the graphics. Monsters can just be words on the screen. That's really all you need to test the system. Now, many of you might object, saying, but that doesn't work. I can't make that engaging without the content. This is actually great, though. It immediately tells us that we should probably find a more robust system. All right, let's try one more. This time, let's look at Ikaruga. Here, we could probably cut down to the color switching mechanic, an enemy which switches color randomly and shoots random bullet patterns, or maybe randomly chooses from a small list of pre-built bullet patterns, as that wouldn't be too hard to construct. Also, you'll need the ability for the player to move and to shoot, a counter which ticks upward as you shoot the enemy, and a death mechanic that simply resets the game when the player gets hit. This will get you all the player behavior you need to find out if your game's engaging. Your players will try to dodge and shoot the enemy while attempting to take advantage of the color swapping system as much as possible. That's all you need. Hopefully, that helps you frame your thinking about just how small your first project should be.
Yeah, some very important things to keep in mind. Don't make the next Skyrim, basically. Right, cool.
Right.
So, okay, I'll take this. Okay, so what is the process of doing all this? Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we actually need to form a team, and you need to brainstorm an idea, like essentially what you're going to do. So you saw all those genres, you are going to need to pick something that perhaps fits into one of those genres. Then you'll need to plan all the resources you will need, So I guess all the tools to make the game, like Unity, VS Code, all the art ones, the actual assets that you're going to make as an artist, I guess, and the code you're going to write, you should get those down so you do know what you're doing. The next thing to do after that would be to make a basic prototype. So like the video said, you don't need something very fancy or big to have a basic prototype. You just need something that works. Then you kind of polish it up, iron out the flaws, make sure it's nice to play and it looks pretty as well. And then finish the assets and put everything together. After that, you should also do some testing just to make sure that everything works and it doesn't break and that there isn't a massive game-breaking bug like 5 minutes in. But yeah. That is the gist of it. Then you submit it and play it and have fun. We'll try to. Okay, where's my bit? Yep. Okay, yeah. So forming teams, like you mentioned before, you can do it yourself or you can do it with other people. I strongly recommend you do it with other people. One of the best things about game jams is actually working with other people, forming friendships, and not having to do every single aspect, i.e. the code and the art by yourself. Because that's not fun.
It's really fucking tough. Do not do it. You will not make a game. I'm telling you, please make a team.
Yeah, I don't want to do this job, so like, if I have AI, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can go. But if you want, you can do solo. If you do feel confident that you can make a game by yourself, go ahead. No worries.
Yep.
Okay, gathering resources. So that's basically just the tools that you'll need for your game. If you're a programmer, you're obviously going to have an IDE or a code editor. If you're an artist, you're going to have art software. What do art people use?
All right. So, you're obviously going to need a bunch of tools, right? You're probably going to be using Unity or Godot or maybe even Game Maker to make your actual game. But you're obviously going to need software like Krita or Sprite to make your art. You're going to need LMMS or even FL Studio to make your music. And you're going to need an IDE if you're a coder to,
Yes.
make your code.
I recommend VS Code just because it's pretty lightweight and you don't need anything more fancy than that. But you can use other IDEs if you want. Like Writer's good. Visual Studio is obviously complicated. No, I mean it's good as well. So yeah, use whatever you want.
And obviously, if you're planning and like doing all that kind of stuff, you can have a Discord channel where you like write all that shit out. You can also write it all up in Google Docs and have like a shared document that all you guys work on. Tools. There are so many different tools that you guys can use, but pick few, use them, be good.
What he said.
We also have a shit ton of artists that you. We also have a shit ton of assets that you guys can use. So there's Open Game Out, which is a really good place to get a bunch of like 2D, 3D, kind of retro, classic style art. You can also get stuff from the asset store or whatever like engine you're using. Unity obviously has the asset store. So does Godot, probably Game Maker as well. I don't know. You'll have to find that out yourself. We also have itch.io, which is good for getting assets as well. It's made by a lot of different people, a lot of different artists. And we also have Free Music Archive, or FMA, which is good if you want music, since not many of you guys are musicians. Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, just make it yourself if you are good at that.
Yeah, not me like using my phone to record audio and then putting it in the game. So.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, guys. So this is going to be our theme reveal. Obviously, we're going to have a prompt for what you're going to be making your games on, and this is going to be it. So drum roll, please. Oh, your theme is minimalist. So, I don't know what you guys can discern from that. You can make a game that's based on the idea of minimalism, the word minimalist, whatever you want. Interpret it however you want. Just try to make a game based on the word minimalist. Additionally, we are also going to have a sub-prompt, which is basically just a sort of like additional thing or theme that you can base your game on. So that sub-prompt is going to be...
Another drum roll?
Arcade. Yeah. So you can make a game that's based on being arcadic and minimalist. Make sure it's minimalist first and then arcadey, but you know, it's there if you guys want to actually implement it as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So with these themes, I want you guys to actually like think up some ideas for how you'd like make a game based on the themes, what kind of ideas, what kind of genres you got in your mind. And let's, you know, break out and generate some ideas. So yeah. If you have any ideas, come forward in the next 2 minutes, and we will call your idea. All right. So, guys, we'll go one by one. These guys are going to present their ideas, and once we're done, you guys can come along to them and form teams with them. All right? So, first off, Orion. What's your game going to be?
I'm Orion. I have 2 people currently in my team, including me. Bonsai platformer. Cut the bonsai tree. Platform around it. You have 1 button, which is cut, the thing is standing on. You want to cut off the unimportant branches and leave the important ones. Bonsai.
Yeah. Right.
Hi, I'm mahnoor. I just want to make some sort of a relaxing simulator, just with a really minimal aesthetic. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be yet. Maybe like a gardening simulator, maybe a baking simulator. So if you want to have cute vibes, maybe cute art, join my team. That's all.
Okay. Can you come here with the mic?
I'm doing, I already have a team of 6 and 7, so we're probably gonna make a game like a Starbound or something. It's just in my mind. We haven't decided yet, so that's probably it.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Kristen, and we could probably use Aladdin and make like a little magic carpet that's like in the air and like a moving background. So it's either be collecting coins or being dropped from the sky, and Aladdin has to.
Doesn't matter.
Hi, my name is Ben. Our idea for a game was a roguelike that's top-down with an emphasis on procedural generation. It's going to be minimalist because we wanted to have minimalist controls, so you don't really specify how you attack, you sort of move around and fight off hordes of enemies. That's it.
Hi, I'm Shinichi. We're trying to make a game that like fighting a boss. We haven't decided in details like how we fight the boss, but we think of either like by shooting or but we would try to keep it simple. And the thing is we would make it suit the theme by like making the story like making the story like sound like minimalist. Yeah. like fighting a boss. And if you guys have any ideas how to fight a boss.
Yeah, all right, sweet. Yeah, you.
Hi, my name is Frank, and we're making a Tekken-like or Street Fighter, and with minimalistic character designs. That's it? Yeah, quite simple.
We actually have one more team who come out and start. It's called Minimalist.
Yeah.
Alright guys, this is the coolest idea you'll ever hear, okay? So basically, imagine a two-dimensional side-scrolling platformer, where the environment is coming at you from the right, and you're a character in the middle of the screen. There's a big monster chasing you from the left like this. And the character you play as is a chameleon, and you can change colors. So the two basic mechanics are jumping and changing colors. And there's like different colored obstacles, and you have to be a certain color to go through. Yeah.
That's like you.
There's a tree, you cut it, and it's done level complete.
Tree, cut it.
Hold on, your tree spirit.
Tree spirit.
Platformer on the tree.
Platformer. Cut it. Alright, now that we've presented all the ideas, I'm gonna need you to write your idea. Sorry. But yeah, if you guys all wanna like come up here, you know, mingle with these teams, join them, feel free. So I'm really glad that there's like a lot of teams, a lot of diversity, a lot of cool ideas floating around. But we are gonna just remind you of a few basic principles for making a game, just so you know you're on track. So yeah. So yeah, what do you have to do? So these are a few things you gotta do. You gotta make sure you guys are communicating. So make sure you establish where and when you will discuss your development. Ideally do it on Discord. I will be setting up a few threads in the channel Teams and Cults for you guys to like put your ideas in, or you can also like make your own servers. That's also for like all the online people who couldn't come today. If they want to join your team, they can go on there. Keep an eye on that. Also, seems you guys have already started to begin like brainstorming ideas and planning. So make sure you guys refine those ideas and come towards like a very specific idea and direction for what you want to make. Be realistic about what you want to make. Remember, quality over quantity can make some of the best games. Make sure you have like milestones and deadlines for your development process. Otherwise, you know, 2 weeks can go by and you're like, oh fuck, I've done nothing at all. Yeah. Also, make sure, you know, gather your tools. Make sure you guys all like have a very like established report of what kind of tools you're going to be using. So make sure you establish your engine. Make sure you find tutorials and guides for how you can make your game. So like it's easier instead of like making a character control from scratch. You can like find it online probably. And obviously you can also download assets from online. You know, work smart, not hard. Yeah. You also want to consider these features. You go.
Okay. So the whole point of working smart, not hard, is like the video said before, don't spend an obscene amount of time trying to do something where perhaps you may just need some help from online to actually get it done, or like a tutorial, you know. Like personally, I like it when I just work on something and I find out how it works by myself. But there are times where you are on a time limit and you don't want to spend like 5 hours doing something that a 5-minute tutorial could essentially tell you. So please work smart. Manage it well. Yeah, so yeah, managing, like we said before, don't overscope. Like it's a really easy thing to overscope and to say I'm going to do this and then you don't get time to do it. Just, I guess, try to weigh your expectations, and if you're spending too much time on one small thing that's not really adding that much to your game, I guess try spending less time on it, or maybe even drop it, or put it on your backlog and come back to it, you know, after all the more important things are done. And the last thing, yeah, mistakes happen. Like, making a game is like one of the hardest things I think you can do, not in life, that'd be weird. That's a really hard thing. Making is really hard. Like, you have art, you have code, you have design, you have to make it fun. Like, finding fun factor of a game is pretty difficult, so mistakes are gonna happen. Just, I guess, learn from it. Don't treat it as a negative experience. It's a positive experience, and you'll do better next time, or worse.
Yeah. Like, jams are incredibly scrappy. You guys are probably gonna make like games that will not look like how you dreamed it up, like tonight. It's gonna look bad. Maybe it'll look amazing. Who knows? But you know, just be happy with it. Be happy with what you make, and just, you know, have fun making this game. Anyway, yeah. Here's some closing words. Yeah, you guys remember our theme is minimalist. Our subprompt is arcade. Remember, scope small. You can become very busy as the weeks go on. University will kind of just like catch up with you. You're gonna have to shut down assignments coming in. So, you know, adjust your expectations for what you can make based on that. You should also play to your strengths. You know, if you can't draw, then make a game that's based on the mechanics. If you're a musician, make music, right? Don't try to code when you can't make code. Also, remember, set deadlines. Teamwork and solo dev works best with like a timeline to follow. Ensure that the game is playable. You know, if we can't run the game at the end of the jam and show it to everyone else, then it's really a game. And yeah, obviously just have fun making it. Game dev is really tough, but it's also super rewarding. You made something for yourself and everyone to enjoy. So yeah. If you have any questions, you can ask us on Discord. But we're going to be running this jam from obviously today, March 20th, till May 8th, which is the start of week 9. So you have like roughly a month if you account for the fact that you're going to be busy as hell. So get cracking. If you have any other queries, you can ask us on Discord. You can scan to find us. We do have a few more topics to discuss. Yeah. So Zane, do you want to come up and talk about awards?
Hi everyone. So just a quick thing to mention now before we get into all the big game jams and all that for the rest of the semester and year. At the end of the year, when we host our AGM, we'll be doing a awards night. And so if you want to be part of this awards night where you can win physical awards and stuff and little bits of goods here and there, the only requirement is that you are a paid member and that you've got something submitted that we can actually sort of run in. So we'll have a large sort of selections of awards mainly based around these game jams. Not necessarily the best, but simple things like fun ideas and all that will all get taken into account. So that's just another thing to sort of keep in mind. So that's about it.
It's categories like funniest game and best car crash, my favorite category.
So. All right, thank you, Zane. Yeah, also one more thing. There are tutorials happening next week. You know that I do pixel art tutorials and he does coding tutorials. Although next week, he's going to be doing Unity tutorials.
That's right, so if anyone wants to learn Unity and doesn't know how to use Unity, we'll be making Flappy Bird in Unity.